Hello, this is Virtuals the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. One of the joys when analysing a game in chess.com is when the algorithm rates a move as brilliant. Even better is when this is for a move that you thought was good during the match. Although I'm not sure we should get too much emotional affirmation from a computer, it's still a lovely feeling. This happened in a game I played this morning against an opponent who played the London system. Please enjoy! All right, let's have a quick look at the review first. This is chess.com's algorithm. As you can see, after the opening, I was ahead, and there's my brilliant move there. Played reasonably well, 86% accuracy. Opponent did pretty well as well, 80%. No, one brilliant. I did play more accurately than my opponent, with only no, three sort of inaccuracies or mistakes. The opponent played reasonably well as well, but did have a couple of blunders. Now let's move on now to the analysis. Rightio, so I played with the black pieces and opponent white, and they opened with d4, to which I responded with d5 and bishop f4. So the London system, in this case the accelerated London system, as typical, I would play knight f6, they played e3, I developed my other knight to c6, they developed knight f3, and here I played bishop g4, pinning the knight to the queen. And potentially these pins can be fairly powerful if they are ignored, as we'll see as this game progresses. The opponent plays c4. It's interesting to me that Stockfish reckons that this was the best move, certainly a very aggressive and committal push. And I think, however, they make a mistake in this match afterwards. So I played e6 to give an extra defender to my pawn on d5. So at the moment, it's got three defenders. The opponent captures, and as you can see, this, the opponent's move to c4 was to create that structure, not necessarily to capture immediately. No, that capture gave the advantage straight to black. Here, I opted to capture back with knight. The Stockfish reckons that immediately pressuring the king and developing the other bishop was good. I can potentially certainly see that, because that would sort of force the opponent to probably block, I suspect, with knight, which pins their other knight to pins their other knight as well. The opponent plays d3, bishop d3, which is another blunder. And the rationale for that is I can now straight up capture that bishop. They are forced to capture back to protect that bishop, now opening up that e file while the king is still in the center. Here I capture the other pawn, which is hanging, so up a piece now. Opponent plays queen a4. Which is a good move here. So here with my knight, I was thinking, I've got two attackers on that knight, potentially being able to win a piece. That's probably the only way the opponent can avoid the loss of that piece. However, it doesn't quite work, because I can just now bring my knight back to c6. The opponent pushes forward their knight d4, and that's their second blunder here, because simply there is no threat here, because firstly I could play this way, so giving a check, so blocking the defense, potentially blocking the defense of the knight with their queen. However, I thought that given that I'm up a little bit of material, I thought that was probably better in terms of development and position. You know, the opponent has double pawns. Why not go for a trade of queens? So straight up captures, and pretty much I thought that this would invite a capture. And that's what happened. And that allowed me to capture back. So now I am ahead on development. My position is probably better. Stockfish agrees, you know, almost -8 in my advantage. Opponent, short castles, which makes sense here. I long castles, so opposite side castling, so that gives me a latitude potentially to do a really aggressive push. Given that I am now up a piece, to up one minor piece. My goal is to try to liquidate the opponent's pieces. So f3, that's a good move. I thought about, bringing my bishop back here, but but now at this point, I saw a different move. So I thought, rather than having a balanced move, if the opponent doesn't play accurately, lots of possibilities here. So that would be double check, though I don't think I get anything out of that, but rather that would now be a discovered check, and then I'll end up capturing the opponent's rook, and the moving of the knight also puts a discovered attack on the opponent's bishop as well. So definitely potentially winning material there. So opponent makes the best move, so moving the king out of that discovered check. So king h1. Now I bring the bishop back to f5, and now allowing me to capture, still without having me doubling my pawns. Opponent plays knight c3, so finally developing their knight. I play bishop d4, so seeing sort of, that sort of diagonal looks very, very juicy. Opponent now moves the knight out of the way, so knight b5. Yep, that makes sense. Yes, that was probably a better move because I actually want to, I want to trade pieces. I want to trade pieces. Opponent now sort of attacks with their rook, so rook ab1, that makes sense. Here I thought, I could sort of just play rook here, so onto the 7th rank or the 2nd rank here to defend my bishop. However, I opted to play a little bit more conservatively. I didn't want to get myself potentially into a trap, so play a little bit more easily. So I decided to retreat the bishop to f6. Opponent now plays rook bc1. So the logic here is 2 attackers on the c7 pawn. Yep, that makes sense. However, easily negated by playing rook d7, providing an extra defender. I probably expected they'll take that pawn. That's fine. King b8. The knight is now evicted back out of that square. Here, double up the rooks, so forming a battery. Opponent plays g5, attack the knight, that's fine. I play knight d4, basically inviting a trade. I thought the trade was probably going to happen, and if the trade didn't happen, then the next move would be a fork of the rook and pawn. So captures back, so opted to capture back with bishop actually rather than the rook, just to maintain the defense, I thought, on that pawn. Yes, it's defended by the king as well, but I didn't want to open up that file if I didn't need to. Now, in this position, opponent has 2 rooks. I've got 2 rooks and a bishop. My pawns make sense. Their pawns are sort of doubled up here. It's really a matter of just hunting things down. So pawn up, defend the bishop, rook to the side, but that can't really do anything. Here. So move the bishop to attack that pawn. Pawn moves forward. Capture with pawn. Pawn captures back. That's all good. So rook now to d5, attacking that piece. That's fine. Now I just move the bishop out of the way. So that's with tempo as well. And they can do that. This is defended 2 times over. So I can just capture that pawn now. So trying to attack that pawn, but easily to just push. So really here I am just bullying effectively my opponent. And the opponent now makes an aggressive push, but I want to trade. I'm happy to trade. So trade, move the king out of the way. And possibly the easiest thing now is just to try to push some of my pawns forward, potentially to promote. Yep, they can take a few pawns. That doesn't really matter. Here, the opponent straight up hangs their rook. I think they were sort of looking at capturing my pawns without thinking very clearly. I give a check first and now capture the rook. And pretty much now it's all over. It's just a matter of promoting. See, so now promoted and checkmate. So a little mating net there. So good game with the opponent, very smooth for me, and I'm very happy to be sort of back up to the 1200s now. It was sort of languishing in the mid 1100s for a while. Good game, GG. Unlike yesterday, I played this game this morning with coffee in hand, and it seemed to work for me. The game went fairly smoothly in my favour, and I was substantially ahead by the beginning of the middle game. A second blunder by my opponent resulted in a clear loss of their knight. And one of the strategies you can employ in that situation, as I described in an earlier video, is to try to liquidate the opponent's pieces with balanced material trades to create an endgame with a piece advantage. As you can see in this game, even though these weren't necessarily the most accurate moves, they were relatively easy to play and safely led to a win. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.